one happened, and that's also the Me Too movement happened in October. So you're suddenly seeing with all these, celebrities and businessmen and everything else, we're dealing with the sins of their past in a huge way. Like all of a sudden it just got opened up, in which that narrative was like loud and proud in our culture of just dealing with the sins of our past. So that's kind of 2017. What I saw in the box office that year was Beauty and the Beast and Guardians of the Galaxy and Thor Ragnarok, and I started seeing that the box office actually was following the Oscars and proliferating the theme. So if you think about like Thor Ragnarok is a great example. Here's a guy, same story as Guardians of the Galaxy Volume 2. He finds out that his dad, that the story that he heard of his dad being this great leader, he ends up finding the true story and having to revisit the fact that his dad was a subjugator, right? And that ultimately dealing with the sins of his past. So that's 2017, you start to see it in the box office. And then even a movie like Coco, I was like, seriously? Like this is a movie about looking at the skeletons, like going back and revisiting the skeletons of our past, This happened like a month after the Me Too movement started. So that was 2017.
That's kind of incredible, actually, because with so many of these, there's no way that the people behind the making of the movies could have anticipated that, because it takes a really long time to make a movie. So even with the box office, like the Oscars, or even with popular culture, like it's not like someone could have, planned it per se. Like, the Me Too movement happens. You don't have a movie that deals so well with these themes come out a few months later. So it's obviously, what's the deal with that?
Yeah, so, there's some industry folks in here who can tell you, it takes, even if you greenlit something and we're like pushing it to market, it may take 2 to 3 years to get it to market. So when I talk about any of these movies, any of these nominees, any of these sets of nominees, I'm talking about they were made a year before that, and they were conceived probably 5 to 10 years before that. So the fact that all these movies come together at once and form a palette of movies that then we can look at and say, hey, they're telling us something, is what's I believe is providential about it. That's the thing that makes it supernatural to me. And moments like this where I see this, and I know people would say, oh, Brian, you're just kind of seeing the Volkswagen because you just bought a Volkswagen, right? And it's just, yeah, that would be true if it was one movie, but it just, you keep seeing it. Keep seeing a lot of Volkswagens on the road.
Yeah. So that happened for 2017.
Yeah, now 2018, also just an example, 2017, because a lot of people watch This Is Us. How many of you guys watch it? Yeah, so what's their filming technique? Like, what do they do? Right, so they butt the past and the present together, right? And that technique was being used with all the Oscar nominees that year too. So not only was it, thematically in the movies, but it was happening in the filmmaking too, where you were watching the past and the present butt up and next to each other, so you can get a perspective on the future with those two. 2018, like I said, this was a year of a lot of Oscars talking about women. Probably The Shape of Water won this year, but probably the one everybody would recognize is The Post. How many of you guys saw The Post with Meryl Streep? So a few people. Also 3 Billboards was that year. Lady Bird was that year. So a lot of women taking agencies and being provokers of change, especially with their words. So Meryl Streep is the head of the newspaper, and she's got to step up and decide whether she's going to actually reveal Vietnam and fight all the male establishment to be able to reveal with her words, in written words, in the Post what happened in Vietnam. So what we saw that year was the blue wave of women in Congress. So just that year, when, in fact, it was 2 years ago, I was here doing it and talking about how I thought that women were being elevated in a place of being provocateurs of change. And I remember talking about Esther in the Bible and saying it's just for such a time as this that women are supposed to lead. And then all of a sudden, when we hit election season, this is what happened. I mean, I don't know, I didn't realize it until I put it in print how significant this is. I mean, first Muslim, first black congresswoman, first Native American congresswoman. It just goes on. First woman governor. And so it was a massive moment, yes. Give it up for the women in the house.
Literally.
So it was a big year, you know, in which actually the Oscars were actually telling us beforehand that this was going to be a year women were actually going to step up and be provocateurs of change.
And you had selected the women thing as the theme in February?
Yes.
And so that was, and this was all.
And actually it was here that we were talking about it. I know there's some people who were here listening to it actually, who were here tonight. So, so that was 2018, and then, like I said, all of a sudden I started looking at the box office. And look at this. This is 2018 box office. You see a whole lot of movies in which there's gender swaps, whereas, you know, instead of Ocean's 11, I think it's Ocean's 8 with women. Even in The Incredibles, you have Mrs. Incredible, who's now the focus, versus Mr. Incredible, who's staying at home. All the mid-levels are like avenging women, which, again, think about it. 2017 in October was the Me Too movement. October 2017, and this is 2018. You can't make movies this fast, right?
It's incredible.
It really is incredible. And then what we saw is that we saw a prominence in movies where we were starting to tell movies about the agency of young women. So that was starting to emerge. And then last year, how I saw this playing in culture. If we want to talk about power struggles, power barriers, and power distribution, this is last year I would say the one that we've all seen is Black Panther, yes? Okay, so it doesn't if I'm telling you about Black Panther, it's not hard to understand that, you know, here's a country that lives behind a barrier, who ultimately goes through a movie of struggling with their power, vibranium, and whether they're going to distribute that vibranium, right? And so that's one of the examples of a lot of the movies that were happening, of whether we were going to, as a society, be more distributive of our power and more inclusive, especially power to people who don't have power. And so if I have to say power struggle, I just give you a picture, and then I move on. And then if I talk about barriers, we were still dealing with barriers this past year. And then if I talk about just like, oh, come on back, sorry. Because I like this little slide. And that is, isn't it cool that in the midst of a lot of movies starting to emerge about younger women actually coming in and taking their agency, that we had the Person of the Year being this unexpected distribution of power to a girl who actually was speaking to the world about climate. So absolutely amazing to me that we saw that. And then this is just a little anecdote, which is this is the first historical year in West Point where 34, I think, black women were graduated. Yeah. Give it up. I like the triple clapping. I love it. Awesome. So this is 2019, the box office again. Similar, where you're seeing more films in which more people are included in those films. Even Hispanic young girls. Yetis, for some reason, this was a year in which Yetis needed power. So that was interesting in 2019. And then here we are in 2020.
So isn't that a really fascinating recap of the last 7 years of Brian looking at the Oscar selections and kind of realizing that it's a prophetic voice, not necessarily in a way that can help you win the stock market this year, but in a way that shows you what's on everybody's hearts and minds right now. And it really is incredible. And it makes sense. The people telling the stories are so connected with what's going on right now, and they tell stories well. And it turns, you know, culture turns into life. So it kind of begs the question of, what's going on now?
Okay, so here we are in 2020, and I'm so excited to kind of talk about the theme tonight. And as Justice said, this is going to be an experiment. And I want to just disclaim up front, you know, I know a lot of people are here probably going, hold on, I came for a party? What is this, you know? I know there's probably people like that. And then there's probably other people going, I didn't, you know, like, are we going to watch the Oscars, you know? And I just want you to know, yes, you will be watching the Oscars. Yes, this is a party. But we really wanted to do something where we said, if these themes are coming out, and this is what God is trying to get us to wrestle with, or this is what, even if you don't believe in God, if this is what's going to maybe emerge in our culture, can't we have a salon where we talk about it, you know? And like really make the Oscars relevant? Because how many really people think the Oscars are relevant? People even see them, you know? So for me, tonight is just a gamble. It may fail miserably, but we're going to try to actually take what the Oscars are saying this year, where I used to just come here and I'd say, here's what it says, see you later. And this year we're going to kind of intersperse, kind of make our own Oscar show, if that's okay with you guys. So we're going to watch some Oscars, and then I've got different speakers who are going to come and talk through different cultural lenses and say, this is what this theme could mean this year for you when it comes to politics. This is what this could mean to you when it comes to race. This is what it could mean to you as far as business, those kind of things. So I hope that you guys are okay with that, and I hope we're going to combine fun with insight tonight. But that's kind of the format for tonight, and if it goes well, then yay! If it doesn't, then you can just throw me out the door and just say, Brian, stop it with all the insight and all this kind of stuff. So, but let me tell you what this year's Oscars say, and why I think it's so important, because I think it's so rare that we get to hear God in this world, right? I don't know about you, but hearing God in this world is kind of cool. And for me to be able to hear it through this weird place of the Oscars, I'm like, okay, bring it on, God. What do you want to say? Well, this year the question has changed a little bit. So the question is changing from will we be a we to will we remain a we, which is kind of like will we end up a we? I don't even know what to do with that, But the difference is, like, let's take Green Book. Two guys who are different, right? They don't know each other. They become friends, right, by the end of the movie. So that's will we be a we, is what we're asking at the end of the movie. Will they be we at the end? With this one, most of these people know each other, right? So Once Upon a Time in Hollywood, DiCaprio and Pitt's character, they know each other, and it's really, will they remain a we at the end? Same thing, Marriage Story is probably the most obvious answer, obvious example of that. So that's the question. And then ultimately what I did to try to help this year is to give circles of this is the way I do my process. So what I saw was we still have some of the same themes as last year, and the number in the parentheses is the number of times that theme shows up in movies. So there's 9 movies. So you see that there's ensemble cast and dual protagonists in almost all the